Welcome to this next video tutorial, and this is going to be texturing a cube with UV mapping in Blender and using a free painting program online called Pixlr. And we'll be doing this specifically for the game engine. So let's get going. Okay, so first I'm going to set up Blender for the game engine by changing to the Blender game engine. Coming over here to the right, making sure I'm on the render panel, scrolling down and choosing shading GLSL. Okay, then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to split my window. Just come up here to the three little diagonal lines, left click, drag to the left, and then I'm going to come down here and click on this little button down here and change my window into a UV image editor. I'm zooming in by using my scroll wheel, panning using my scroll wheel. Okay, I'll come over here and I'll press T to hide that toolbar. I'll tab into edit mode, and with the entire cube selected, I'll press U to unwrap, and I'll choose Smart UV Project. It's a little tough to see here, but it says island margin, and I always like to put in a little bit of island margin. 0.03 should be fine, or you could do 0.06, that'll be fine as well. I'll hit OK. And now you can see here's all 6 of our sides, and here's the island margin, which are the gaps in between, which gives you a little bit of breathing room. Okay, put your mouse pointer in your UV window, press A so that they're all selected. I'm going to come down here to the UVs menu, and I'm going to choose Export UV Layout. I'm going to navigate to the desktop, and I'll go ahead and I'll call this, I'll call it Demo. And I'll call it Cube UV Unwrap. Now it is going to be a ping because down here in the bottom left hand corner you can choose what format. I always recommend PNG, and the size 1024 by 1024 is fine for right now. Okay, so that gets exported. It'd probably be a good idea right now to save your project. So again, I'll save this to the desktop. I'll also call this Demo. Cube UV. Okay, so now that I've got this, I've exported this layout unwrapping image as a PNG. Now I'm going to go to my web browser, and you need to have your texture. I'm going to be making this into a very simple game crate. So I went on to I searched free textures for crates. I came across this one here. OpenGameArt.org is also an excellent place. So I'm going to take this one here. So I'm going to right mouse click on it, save image as, and we'll call it demo crate.jpg. Okay, save, and now I'll go to my image painter. So it's called Pixlr, P-I-X-L-R. There is GIMP, which is also free. You download it. That's probably the closest equivalent to Photoshop. But this is pretty darn close, and it runs in a web browser, which is nice. So I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to come here to the editor, choose Launch Web App. And you can create an image from scratch, but we're going to open one from the computer, so click there. I'll go find my demo unwrap. And there it is there. Okay, so I'm going to do something now slightly different than what we covered in class with my students. And now I want to bring in the crate image. There are basically 2 ways you could do this. You could do it the long way, and this is the way that I did it in class. You could do File, Open Image, and you can go ahead and open up your image. And you could then use things select all. You could do edit, select all, and once it's selected you could do edit, copy, then come over to your UV unwrap and do edit, paste. If it doesn't paste, it probably means that you actually didn't click on copy, so just go back and do it again. So that's actually the long way. One of my students actually showed me an easier way, which is really cool. So I'm going to go ahead and close the crate and just show you how easy this is. So you come up here to the layer menu and choose Open Images Layer. Aha. Bring in my crate, and boom, it just comes right in, and it comes in as a layer. So that's fantastic. Okay, so now I'm going to rename my layers by double-clicking layer 0. That's going to be my UV layer. And to name the layers, you have to type it in, and then you have to click out here to actually name it. And then this one's going to be crate, of course. Okay, so now to move it around and resize it. So I'm going to zoom in using my scroll wheel, spacebar to pan. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to do this top one first. Okay, so I'm going to take the move tool, and the move tool allows me to, of course, move the layer around. To resize it, I'm going to do edit, and I'm going to do free transform. And you want to be very careful, because if you click and you drag on any of these blue handles here, you can and you will eventually distort your layer. So if this happens, just click outside and then say no, you don't want to apply the changes. So the way you get around that free transform is you hold down the shift key, then you click on one of the four corners, and now they all scale accordingly. So you could, let's say you want to be as precise as possible, you could go ahead and try to eyeball it and put it in the middle, and then hold down shift and click and drag it out and try to get just right. And on the top it looks pretty good, but on the right side you can see there's a little bit left, and on the bottom there's a little bit left. So now you're going to move it around, and so it just becomes a little bit wonky. So what I like to do is I like to sort of lock in one side, and you can see the top side and the left side looks good. And then I take this little star right here, which is actually the anchor, and that's where all of the sizing and scaling is coming from. So what I'll do is I'll left click and I'll drag the anchor up here to the left, and I'm just eyeballing it, and then I'll hold down the shift key and I'll click and drag it from the opposite corner, and because the anchor is up in the left corner, it'll scale from that corner, and it should work just fine. Now if you absolutely need to left click and drag and just give it a little tiny bit in one side just to really make sure it works, you certainly can. Then you click outside and you say yes. Okay, so now is a good time to do our first save. So if you do file and save, you can sign up. I don't have an account, so I'm not sure if giving you an account actually gives you some benefits. I think you can store your images online, but I don't know if the saving process, actually it looks like the saving process is you can actually save it to the Pixlr cloud. So I think that would be nice. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and save to my desktop. So I'm going to keep the name the same, except I'm not going to call it unwrap. I'm going to go ahead and call it final, even though I'm not done yet. And I'm going to change the format. This is the important part. If you're all done, you can maybe save it as a ping, but we want to always save the PXD version, because you never know if you're going to need to come back and save it with all of the layers intact, and that's the important part. Is we're going to have a whole bunch more layers here in just a moment. Alright, so I'm going to click on OK, and now it's going to ask me again, where do I want to put it, and I'm just going to put it on the desktop, and you'll see up here it's a PXD file, and I'll hit save. There we go. Okay, so now I want to duplicate my crate here. So I'm going to come over here to my crate, and I'm going to right mouse click on it, and you'll see that I get a bunch of layer commands. So I'm going to choose duplicate layer. It creates a copy. Where's the copy? So take the move tool, left click, drag it off, and there we go. So again, I'm holding down the space bar and I'm panning so that I can go ahead and get this just right. Okay, so here's the thing about this UV map right now. I don't really know which one is top, which one is front, which one is side. So if you need to go back, you can go back to Blender, and what you can do is you can kind of figure out what's what. So over here I'm going to switch to face mode, and if I select the top face, I can now see it's actually this one right down here. If I want to select the bottom face, I can select this one here, and I can see it right there. So that's how you would figure out what's what, and we'll come back to that as a finishing move. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and quickly knock these out and duplicate them and place them there. Pause the video and come back. Okay, I'm back, and I decided I'm going to save my image one more time. So when you're doing this, just keep the name the same, and then just remember to change it back to a PXT layered format. And I'll hit OK. And I'm going to save it with the exact same name, so it should prompt me, yes, to replace the old one with the new one. And there we go. Okay, so now I can go ahead and I can get in and I can do some artistic stuff. So for instance, I know that this is the top, and I want the top, which is this middle one here, I want the top to have some extra artistic touches here. So I'm going to come over to my layers toolbar, and I'm going to move my history over here so I have a little more space, close this promotion, and I can go ahead and drag out my layers to be nice and long. Okay, so I want to now make a new layer, and that new layer is going to be, I'm going to go ahead and call it Danger. Okay, and make sure that I have it selected. Now what I'm going to use is I'm going to go here to the brush tool, and under brushes you can go ahead and load up all of these brushes here. You can also click on more, and you've got these different categories here which are really nice. And so under artistic, you could go to, say, dirt, let it load, and you can get these really nice sort of dirt grunges and things like that. You can also load in cracks, and charcoal's got some pretty nice, smudges and stuff like that. If you've got a whole smudge brush here, splatters, which is great for blood and oil and tar and stuff like that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and load up some dirt, and I'll just say add, and you'll see that now the dirt smudges are down here. If you want to, you can reset and get back to the regular default. So here we go. Okay, so now I'm going to want to actually want to brush in just some text that says danger. There are other categories, as I said. There's makeup, general shapes, so check those out, and miscellaneous. It's not bad. It's not really good for this tutorial. Okay, so I think I'm going to go ahead and do charcoal. I'm going to load the charcoal brushes so I get some nice texture here. And I'm just going to go ahead and choose this one right here. Okay, so here it is here, and I'm going to zoom in on that top one. Okay, so the only unfortunate thing is that I don't have my tablet and stylus hooked up to my laptop at the time of this recording, so it's not going to be the prettiest. Okay, so I want to change the size, so this is the diameter right here. So you just come on up and you can change it right here. I'm forgetting what the keyboard shortcut is. There we go. It's the comma and period key on the keyboard. So there we go. So that's the fast way of doing it. So now I'm doing this with my mouse. I'm going to choose my color picker here, and I'm just going to go ahead and choose kind of a deep red there. And I'll go ahead and I'll just do, let me undo that. And I'll just go ahead and write in danger. And because I'm writing this with my mouse, it sort of looks like it was done quickly, I guess. And let's see, last but not least, I'll maybe choose one of those splatter brushes. Those seem pretty cool. Scroll down here. Okay, so something like that. Control Z to undo. Maybe change my red a little bit, get a little more saturated. Okay, go a little smaller. Something like that. I don't know if you can rotate the brush. What you could do, if you really don't like the angle of the splat in this case, is you could make a new layer, do the splat on the layer there, and you could go ahead and you could then rotate the layer. Okay. So for instance, watch this, I'll add in a new layer, and I'll put the splat right there. This is splat. And then I'll take the splat layer, I'll put it right over the danger sign, and then I'll move the splat layer down below that, and you can see that now, even though it's a little tough to see, you can see that it's actually underneath the danger sign, so it looks like the splat was there first and then the danger sign was there afterwards. So that's kind of cool. Okay, so you could do other stuff right now. The only other thing that I would consider doing is maybe making a grunge layer, and that's generally any bit of grunge and dirt. I'm going to put that at the very top. Maybe choose kind of a light dark black color there. Go back to the brush and choose one of these charcoal brushes. Okay, make it significantly smaller. There we go. And I'm going to change the opacity. Instead of 100%, I'm going to go much lighter, do something like that. And I'm just kind of grunging it up, and you can see that it's getting, the more I click or the more I draw and paint, it is making this darker here, so that's kind of cool. What I would then want to do is figure out which ones were the side ones. So if I just go ahead and select all 4 sides, you can see these here, which is fairly random of Blender to do that. And then what I could do is I could go in and I could brush around, and I could just make them nice and dirty, and I could change the color here a little bit. I'm not going to get too much into it right now. I'm going to change the opacity so it's a little bit greater, so we see a little bit more of the black grunge. Let's get into some darker values there. There we go. Okay, so that's probably too dark now. Again, you can also change the opacity of a layer. You can also come in and erase a little bit. So maybe I'll choose a little bit of a lighter gray, lighter and dark. Okay, just to kind of dirty things up. Okay, so I'm pretty much done here. So I'm going to do one final save, and again, I would save it as another PXD, just so that way you're all set. Replace it, and then you're now ready to bring it back into Blender and finish this tutorial up. So we want to save it as a PNG again because we don't want the background. I'll say OK, save it, go back to Blender. Okay, so how do we bring this into the game engine and actually see all of our work now? Okay, so first thing you need to do is come over here, click on the material panel. We already have a material panel, and that's because this was the default cube. If you didn't have a material panel, it would look like this, and you would click on New Material. Let me go back into edit mode so you can see things. You want to get in the habit of naming your material, so I'll call this crate matte. There we go. You don't need to do really anything else. We will come back here and we'll look at specular in just a moment. Then you're going to come up here and click on the texture panel, and you're going to say new texture, and we'll call this crate text. Make sure you hit return. There's no preview because we haven't loaded an image yet. Come down here to image, we'll choose open. I'll go to my desktop. I have quite a few images on my desktop, so I like to click on this button here, which has the 4 little squares, and it shows you all the different various images you've got. So this is it right here. I'll go ahead and I'll bring it in. You can see it tiling over here. That's great. I also want to see it over here as well, though. So the way you do that is come down here to the bottom of your UV window. Come to this button here. It looks like a little landscape with double arrows. You're going to click, and you're going to choose the image that you just loaded up. You're going to zoom out. I'll go ahead and select all, so you can see they're all in there. I'm going to press A, so nothing is selected in my UV window, so I can really see it here. And what's interesting is that this one on the far right really looks very different than these other ones. I'm not quite sure why it's doing that. Okay, so the final step. Why am I not seeing it over here? So what I need to do is I'm going to press Z, and that brings up my pie menu. If you don't have pie menus set up, you can simply come down here and you can click on this little pop-up menu right here, and you can choose either texture or you can choose material. Both of them will work. So I'm going to go ahead and choose texture, and I'm going to tab out of my game mode, or sorry, edit mode into object mode, and I'm going to select my light, and you'll see that if I move my light around, move it closer to the crate, it does get brighter, and there you go. I'll go ahead and lift my crate up so it's on top of the grid. I'll throw in a plane, scale it up a little bit so it's the floor, so it actually has something to be on, and there we go. So let's see what this looks like in game, and you can see that my danger is coming in. It's super shiny, which makes it look completely fake. So I'm going to come back to my materials tab, come back down here to specular, and I'm just going to drop the specular all the way down to 0 because this is an old crate and it really shouldn't be that shiny. Okay, so I'm going to select my light, maybe make my light a little bit brighter, make it 2, bring it up a little bit. Okay, and I'll lower the specularity of the ground, give that a material, lower the specularity, there we go. Okay, so to see this in game, I would just press P, and there you go, there it is in game. The only other thing that I want to show you in this tutorial, because I know it's getting long, is that if I wanted to edit this, if I press tab and go back into edit mode, and if I select the face, let me make sure I'm in face mode. I'm going to get into face mode over here in the UV windows, so I'll press Control Tab, get into face mode. So here's the face here. For some strange reason, Blender has forgotten what texture I had loaded up here, so just come back down here and choose your texture. Okay, so let's say I want it rotated. I don't like the way it's facing. I can just select the whole face over here. I can press R for rotate, and I can do it manually, and you'll see it's working, but I can also type in 90 on my numpad or my top of my keyboard, and you'll see now the word danger is facing another way. Again, I can press R, 90, and it will rotate another 90 degrees, and the texture is good to go. Okay, that is it. So those are the basics of UV unwrapping with the game engine in there. And what's interesting is that it looks like the color change came back, or the color corrected itself. Yeah, so that's very strange. The color looks like it corrected itself. Maybe it's just me and it's early in the morning. I don't know. Okay, I hope this helps, and I'll see you in the next one.